I'm attorney Phil Jusino, and this is Finding Common Ground here on Altice. You can see this show every Saturday at 10 a.m. on channel 115, Cablevision, Altice, or you can see this on YouTube by going to my YouTube channel, Phil Jusino. That's P-H-I-L-J-U-S-I-N-O. You'll see my old shows and my most current show. Got a great show planned for today. First topic is a Dallas, Texas salon owner who was jailed for 7 days because she kept her salon open because she had to make a living. The second topic is the hypocrisy of politicians on both sides of the aisle. It's do as I say, not as I do. And the other topics will flow in depending on how much time we have. So let's get to it. First topic I want to talk about is a Dallas, Texas salon owner. She has a salon in Dallas, Texas. She cuts hair. She has stylists that also work for her. So it's a small business. She defied Governor Abbott's order to keep her store closed. The ironic part is it'll be open, or they'll be allowed to be open, on Friday, which is the 8th of May. But she kept her store open for 7 days. She didn't apologize to the court. The judge said, you apologize, it's probably just a fine. She refused to apologize. She said, I had no choice. I had to feed my family, and my hairstylists had to feed their families. So she refused to apologize. She was sentenced to 7 days in jail and also thousands of dollars in fines. Now it's interesting because 2 Texas lawmakers also got their hair cut in defiance of the order, and I guess as a show of support. Now, Governor Abbott is a Republican, and by all accounts, not a liberal man. Maybe he felt pressured to impose this kind of restriction. And it's interesting because the Attorney General of the state of Texas said to the judge, let her go, release her. She didn't deserve to be jailed, which is very interesting. The Attorney General, the highest law enforcement official of the state, is the Attorney General. And that's what he said. Now, Governor Abbott agreed with what the Attorney General had to say by saying she didn't deserve to be jailed. And I don't think she deserved to be jailed. There's other things that you could have done. Maybe a fine. I personally am not clear as to whether or not that is even constitutional, and there's going to be some challenges. Because just because there is a pandemic, it could be an earthquake, it could be a number of things, you don't throw the Constitution out the window. And the government, whether it be federal, state, or local, has to follow the least restrictive means test. The example is, if you have a fly, you don't use a bazooka to kill the fly. You have to use the least restrictive means available. Give you an example. Let's say the governor had said, which might have been the smart thing to do. So you have a hair salon. You have to wear a mask. You have to wear gloves. The customers who walk into your shop have to wear a mask, maybe gloves, but certainly a mask. And you can't have more than a certain amount of people in the store at a time. Rather than saying to this woman, you're not going to be able to feed your family, so don't even think about opening. That's what the governor, and not just Governor Abbott, but in a lot of states, in a lot of municipalities, they're told, here in New York, the governor is saying, stay shut down until the curve is totally flat or until there's only 15 cases a day, something along those lines. But you can do it with least restrictive or less restrictive means. So I used the example last week. I have a law office. There's things I can do. I can make accommodations to protect my people. Maybe they work from home, but I'm allowed to come in to see new clients. Without new clients, you can go out of business. New clients and customers are the lifeblood of any business. It's like saying to the Village Idiot across the street from me, it's a restaurant and bar, well, why don't you people just work from home? Why not? I had a friend on Facebook who said, why don't you just work from home? Okay, well, what do I do about my clients? I can do a lot of work from home, and I do a lot of work from home. I can do motions, I can do complaints, I can go over files, I can make phone calls, I can have conferences with the court. But if clients aren't walking in the door, if customers aren't walking into a restaurant, a bar, they will fail. You can only hold on so long. Even a big organization. You've seen the ones that applied for monies, like Ruth Chris, or the Lakers, and some of these organizations. They said we needed the money. Well, maybe, maybe not. But even big organizations can't hold on forever. Look at Disney. They had to furlough a lot of people. They have a lot of money. Big, big corporation. Probably one of the biggest in the country, maybe in the world. And they had to let people go. So if they're letting people go, what about the little guy that has 5 employees, can't stay open, has to stay closed, can't generate new business? What the heck does he or she do? And that's why this woman, her name is Shelley Luther, she said, I couldn't afford to stay closed. So she opened. But there was less restrictive means could have been applied. Think about it. You go to a supermarket. I went to Home Depot the other day. I had to wait online because they weren't allowing too many people in the store. And when I finally got in, there weren't that many people in there. And that's not a bad thing. That's a way to handle it. To say we're not going to have people wall to wall. Just like in the courthouse. When they open that courthouse eventually, they may not open it fully so that everybody floods in there at 9 a.m. They might say, okay, you're the morning shift, you're the afternoon shift. They might do something like that. I suspect they will. Maybe not call it morning and afternoon shift, but they might say your case is on at 9, your case is on at 2. Because otherwise, you look at the second floor waiting area in Central Islip Courthouse, Family Court. There are people wall to wall generally. It's almost like, the pews of a church. The long, long benches, and you might have 15, 20 people sitting in a row or two, right next to each other. So if you cough or you sneeze, you're right next to that person. And in the era of COVID-19, that's a problem. It wasn't prior. We could have the worst flu season known to man where 60, 70, 80,000 people die, and there was no skin off the government's nose, right? Do you remember hearing anything about the flu season of 17-18 where over 60,000 people, over 60,000 people died? The number might be higher. I don't remember the government say, shelter in, socially distance yourself, wear a mask, get your vaccination. COVID-19 doesn't have a vaccination. The flu did. I don't remember them coming out and saying, get your flu shot. Maybe they did. It wasn't that prominent because I don't recall it. And we're only talking about 2 years ago. We're in beginning of 2020, and in 2018, that flu season ended where many, many people died. So if the government's all about saving lives, and that's the most important thing, the only thing, let businesses go under, let people commit suicide, let women be the subject of domestic violence, let drug addicts go into a worse place, let people with mental health devolve and suffer greatly, let children suffer because maybe their parents don't have the money to feed them or to clothe them or to take proper care of them or the mental health to do that. That's okay if we save one life. That's not what the government's job is. I said that many times. The government obviously takes into consideration the safety of the people. But in a free society, the government shouldn't say a bad flu season is coming or a pandemic. Let's shut everything down so that there are hardly any deaths. We take a risk every single day when we walk out our front door. We know that. You get in your car, 90 people will die today. You smoke a cigarette, 500,000 people will die this year. You may get a cold. You may get a flu. You may get COVID-19, which is pretty darn bad. Not making light of it. Good people have died. Good people die of the flu. Good people die of lung cancer. Why doesn't the government come in and say, we're going to outlaw smoking because we know 500,000 people will die this year? No way near that in America will that many people die of COVID-19. Not in this year, not in a number of years if we had COVID-19 next year and the year after. We probably won't lose 500,000 people. So it's a gamble. We know the risks walking out our door. You can be hit by a truck. You walk around the city. People die on a regular basis. A car or taxi or Uber runs a curb and kills somebody. We know that. Or a terrorist in the city, I think it was last year or the year before that, somebody with a van mowed down a bunch of bicycle riders. We don't say don't ride bicycles. We know people will get hit. Pick up Newsday. Motorcyclists will die with great frequency on the roads in Suffolk County and all over the country. We don't outlaw motorcycles. Small planes will go down often. We hear about it all the time. New York, New Jersey. Remember, Thurman Munson died in a plane crash. A small one. I'm not talking about the 747s. They're pretty darn safe. Those are the ones I go in. I don't like to go into small planes. Thurman Munson. A pitcher for the Yankees died a number of years ago. In fact, Thurman Munson died on my birthday in the late 70s. And then you have John F. Kennedy Jr. died in a plane crash, maybe a plane he wasn't equipped to fly. We don't say don't fly planes. We don't do that. We allow people to assume certain risks. Now, nobody is telling people you have to go get a haircut from Shelley Luther. You have to go into that shop. Nobody's telling you to do that. Stay home if you'd like. You don't have to. Stay home if you like anyway. No one is saying you have to walk out your front door. You can stay home. You can't make a living that way unless you work from your house, but you could go on welfare or you can get food stamps if you can't work, right? You have to follow certain rules, but there are people that do that. They become couch potatoes and they become 400 pounds and they have no life because that's how they choose to live their life. Instead of going out, working, not eating the wrong foods or not smoking or not doing drugs, we take risks. The government allows us to do that. God allows us to do that. We're put on this earth. We're lucky to be in America, where we have the right to do certain things. You don't have those rights in China. You don't have those rights in Russia. Go to the Middle East. If you're a woman, you hardly have any rights at all in the Middle East. I remember when COVID-19 was called, coronavirus at the time, hit in China, they were plucking people off the streets. They didn't even know what hit them. At least here, we have certain rules, we have due process. This lady had a right to go before the judge. Well, the judge sentenced her to jail, but she could appeal, and she might appeal. I suspect she will. Just like, can the government tell us to wear masks? That's being challenged by an attorney in Connecticut. He's saying it infringes on your liberty and your freedom. It does, but does the government have the right to go that far and do that? That's the question. There are also 18 states and Washington, D.C. that have laws that you can't wear masks in public. The laws vary to some extent. Some are more strict than others. Think about it. A bank's open. You're going to go into the bank with a mask on, right? Imagine doing that 2-3 months ago. Imagine that. Walking into a bank with a mask on. Somebody would take you down. They would assume you're robbing the bank. The police would be called. A sniper from across the street will be shooting at you as you come out of the bank. Not now. So with regard to that situation in Texas, could have been handled better. Did she deserve jail? I don't think so. Now, people say she broke the law. Okay, let's assume that the judge enacted that law. Might have been executive order. I don't think the legislature passed that. So it's like a executive order that Obama signed. I think Trump signed a number of them. Obama was famous. He said, I got a pen and a phone. So he signed a lot of them. But I say this to you. Do we have to follow every law on the books? And you're looking at me like, wait a minute, you're an attorney, Phil. What about an unjust law, or a law that you think is unjust? And again, you're looking at me saying, wait a minute, you have to follow every law. Did Rosa Parks follow every law? No, she didn't. And we remember her name 50 or so years after it happened, because she did the right thing. She refused to follow the law that blacks had to go to the back of the bus. She couldn't sit in the front of the bus. Well, she did, and she was arrested. And that started and kept moving forward a whole movement, which had started. And she became the face, in a sense, with Martin Luther King and Abernathy and a lot of others, the face of the movement, because she refused to do that. Now, people back then, whites mostly, could have said, I don't think any blacks at the time would have said what I'm about to say, they could have said, she broke the law. She deserves to go to jail. Right? No. It was an unjust law that was challenged. How do you think laws get changed or get ruled unconstitutional? How do you think that happens? Someone has to be charged with it first. And then they're convicted, because if you take a plea, you might lose your right to appeal. So they're convicted. And then the case goes to the next level, which is an appellate court. If you're in New York, it could go to the appellate division, Court of Appeals. If it's a constitutional issue, it can go to the United States Supreme Court, Roe v. Wade. You hear all these cases that had to do with abortion. Miranda warnings. That law came about because someone's rights were violated. And they said, now you have to read the person their rights and make sure they understand their rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney. Those things came about because of injustices, where people's rights were being violated. And there was a man named Miranda. The Miranda warnings. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what I'm talking about. So if you believe a law is unjust, many people commit the crime or the violation of law, and then they challenge it and the law can change. Just like in this case, it could change. I'm not saying it will, but it could. So whenever someone says you got to follow the law no matter what, think of Rosa Parks. Simple. That's a perfect example. Certainly not the only one, but that's a perfect example. And you see it all the time. Read Supreme Court, United States cases. And that's why people get nervous. I'll give you an example. Like when Kavanaugh when he was nominated and going to be put on the court, the United States Supreme Court. People were nervous because they said, wait a minute, he's going to overturn Roe v. Wade. Well, how does that happen? You get 5 people that vote against it if it's challenged again. What comes up before them. That's how it's done. So that's why somebody say, things are etched in stone. They're not. Because let's say tomorrow a liberal president took office and 3 Supreme Court justices either retired or died. And that president got to nominate 3. And let's say there were already 2 or 3 liberal, and we know there are, liberal justices on the bench. That would change the whole makeup of the bench. So you wouldn't have a 5-4 or 6-3 vote with conservatives. It would go the other way. So what was long-standing law, where people could go to bed at night saying, Roe v. Wade, People v. Miranda, that can change overnight. When the Supreme Court meets starting in October of every year. Now they're doing arguments from a phone or Skype. Never happened before. They're doing that now, just like the courts. We're going to talk about that a little later. So things can change overnight based on the makeup of the court. That's why if it goes to, let's say, the Ninth Circuit in LA, well, not LA, but in that region, Washington and so on, that's a liberal place. They knock down a lot of what President Trump wants to do. Then another judge comes along and says, no, that's good. Now, are those judges idiots? No, they're not. They're bright people. You'd hope they're bright people. I don't know them personally, but to get to that level, Somebody had to nominate them, and you hope that a governor or a president, if it's federal, would nominate a smart person. Yet there's disagreements. That's why people say, oh yeah, that's definitely that. Okay, it was a 5-4 vote. That meant 4 very intelligent people disagreed with the majority. And all it took, remember Obamacare? Where you had one Justice Roberts, of all people, came down on the side of Obama, and you had Obamacare. If he would have gone the other way, people would have been like, see, I told you that law is unconstitutional. It's only unconstitutional because 5 Supreme Court justices say it's unconstitutional or say it's constitutional. That's how it works. But that's the law. That's what we follow. The next topic I want to talk about is the hypocrisy of politicians on the left and on the right. You see it every day. I'll give you a couple examples. Mayor Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, came out the other day, very recently, and said, stay in. If you go outside, you will go to jail. So she set the parameters. Don't go out. I guess there are exceptions. Obviously, if the person's a doctor or a nurse or something like that, and they have to go out. But stay inside or you can be arrested. That's what she said. Look it up. You can Google it or read an article about it. Mayor Lightfoot, fairly new mayor. Yet, she goes out and gets a haircut, right? Against her own rules. Don't go get a haircut. Those places should be closed. But she's the mayor. She's not like you and I. And then when she's caught, she says in one of her press conferences, so it's out there, you can see it, I saw it. She says, well, I'm a public official, I'm the face of Chicago, and I care about my hygiene and how I look. That's all well and good. I care about how I look, but I don't get up and stand before people and say, you stay in, and then I go get a haircut. That would be hypocritical. Now, if I said, I got a haircut, I'm not stopping you from, that's not hypocritical. It's the hypocrisy that I don't like. And she's not the only one. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, came out, and again, this is all public knowledge. I'm not telling you or saying something that's not out there in the public domain. And I saw the video, and he says, stay at home. This was around Easter time. Make sacrifices. Don't spend Easter with the family. You could kill him. Stay in. He's going through the whole thing, like they all do. Like Chicken Little. The sky is falling. Stay in. Okay, if you believe that, adhere to it. What does he do? He goes to Quebec, and he visits his family for Easter. The height of hypocrisy. So it's do as I say, not as I do. I'm the Prime Minister, or I'm the President, or I'm the VP, or I'm the Mayor, or I'm the Governor. I can do whatever the heck I want. You can't, because you're one of the little people. You have no power. De Blasio, can't stand the man. One of the worst mayors we've probably ever had, one of the worst politicians I've ever seen, a big hypocrite. What does he do? He goes to the gym. He recently went to Brooklyn to walk. He lives in Manhattan, I believe, or that's where the Gracie Mansion is. So what does he do? He goes to Brooklyn. He and his wife go for a walk. Now, they weren't a mask. And someone starts videotaping. Said, what are you coming all the way here for? Aren't there parks in Manhattan where you can walk? And isn't he saying stay in? And I saw him the other day. And I saw Governor Cuomo walking around without a mask. And when they do a press conference, they're only a few feet, 6 feet, they're only a few feet from a person sitting next to them. Even the president, President Trump, but he's not a hypocrite because he's not even, I guess he's saying wear a mask, but he's not pushing it to the way they are with righteous indignation. You better wear your mask. I didn't hear Trump saying that. He's saying, I guess, follow the rules and all that. I think deep down, he has a different feel of what he believes he has to say, right? Based on what he's being told by the experts. So de Blasio, Cuomo, he's sitting near people. I saw him brush up against the woman who was sitting to his left so he could pass her. That's within 6 feet. He didn't have a mask on. He's breathing. What if his brother had it? What if she had it? He could get it. See how it works? If you're going to put your foot down as a leader and say, this is what I want you to do, you have to lead by example. If you don't believe it, say it. I can respect that. I can respect people I disagree with. I don't respect the hypocrisy. Mike Pence, our vice president, did the same thing. He goes to a hospital and he doesn't wear his mask. Foolish. The optics, and beyond the optics, the safety. Maybe he gets VP. I'm sure he sees the president on a regular basis. Maybe he gives it to him. Maybe he gives it to Fauci. Maybe he gives it to Birx. So our experts are saying, put a mask on. Remember when they said, don't wear a mask? Not that long ago. I wasn't wearing a mask because they said, don't wear a mask. They said that, unless you think you have it. And then it changed. And I understand they're learning. But what the heck are we to believe? I remember one time, in fact, I had a conversation with my dad the other day, how years ago, doctors, actors, Ronald Reagan, Brooklyn Dodger, I forget, it wasn't Pee Wee Reese, it was another, Carl Furillo. They're doing cigarette commercials. Now, back then, they didn't have the same knowledge we have now. But they were saying, I smoke Camels. There was a doctor. I saw the video. It's a show called Game Changer. It's one of the reasons why I'm kind of eating vegan now. Game Changer is on Netflix. And in there, they say the reason why people believe it's okay to eat meat, and I'm not saying don't eat meat. I'm not like that. Like the loons on the left, where if they don't like meat, you shouldn't eat meat. If they don't want to drive around in a big car, you shouldn't ride. I drive an Escalade. I'm not telling you what to drive. I stopped eating meat. I'm not saying I'll never have another steak. I'm not telling you what to eat. That's how I see it. But in the movie, in the documentary Game Changer, they talked about why people believe it's okay to eat meat, just like it was okay to smoke. And I was talking about those famous people, doctors. 4 out of 5 doctors recommend Camels. That'll kill you. I worked for a man who smoked Camels. He died of lung cancer. Camels will kill you. Cigarettes will kill you, unless you're George Burns. He smoked a cigar. I think he lived to 90. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he didn't inhale like Bill Clinton. But those things are bad for you. But our government allows us to do it. And there were commercials. So people my parents' age growing up, they didn't see the danger of cigarette smoke like I did growing up. And then it was on the package, Surgeon General warning. It's there. It's telling you. I remember watching, I think it was a Senate hearing or something. I was young, but I remember seeing it. Maybe it was a commercial or maybe it was a documentary I saw it on. But I remember being young and fairly young, not a little kid, but young. And they were asking these executives like Philip Morris and the other executives, is cigarette smoking bad? And to the man or woman, they said no. They were lying because later on we found out there were memos that said it is not good for you. Harmful, can cause cancer. So the government confuses the heck out of us. Special interests. Now I hear too that one of the reasons why they were saying eat a lot of protein that comes from animals, and because we thought that our ancestors did a lot of hunting. They didn't do as much hunting as we believe, because you found arrows and spears and things like that, and bones. Oh, so they must have been hunting on a regular basis animals. They weren't. You just didn't see the vegetation that would degrade and rot. So you wouldn't see that. The spear tip would, so you say, oh, they must all be hunters. Some were. But many of them, and now with certain technologies, we know that they ate more of a plant-based diet. And when you do that today, you will be healthier. I lost a decent amount of weight fairly recently by going vegan. I haven't had a steak in a long time. Maybe I consumed 10 ounces of soda in the last 2 weeks. Haven't had any chicken, maybe 1 or 2 eggs. I'm eating healthier. That's for me. I'm not telling you what to do. And you can get the protein you need. But we were fooled for many years, and special interest groups come out. The meat industry, meat's good for you. Well, what do you expect them to say? Somebody that's paid a lot of money is not going to come out and say, meat's bad for you. Where's my check, meat industry? So we were told, don't wear a mask. Then we're told, wear a mask. This drug is good, this drug is bad. This drug will heal you, then tomorrow it'll kill you, but then it really will heal you. So we don't always know what to believe. Remember when Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco, Chinatown, was saying, come on down. Now, I don't think that she believed that people would die by doing that. She didn't have the information. But then she turns around and blames Trump, who tried to stop flights from China. So he's the bad guy. De Blasio, Cuomo, Fauci even said, and again, look these things up. Don't just take my word. If I say something, you can take it to the bank. Guarantee it. Unless I say it's my opinion, and then you know it's my opinion. Fauci came out and said, be careful of it, but it could be like the cold. Or de Blasio said something to that effect. It might not be as bad. They didn't know. And that's okay that they didn't know. But then don't pass the buck and blame somebody else who you were advising. If I'm the president or I'm a mayor or governor, I'm relying on my experts. I'm not a doctor. I'm relying on my experts to tell me what the heck is coming from China. What do we do? Okay, socially distance, okay, and do this and do this and do this. Because if we don't, 2 million people will die. If we do it, maybe only 100 people will die. So we listen to our experts. Just like if a mayor is not an attorney and he needs an opinion about something, whether it's legal or not legal, he will go to an attorney. Just like I would if I had a question. I'm not a bankruptcy attorney. I do family law, divorce, personal injury, and criminal. Those are in my wheelhouse. I don't do bankruptcy. So if I had a bankruptcy question, I'd ask a bankruptcy attorney. Our officials rely on this information from the experts. And I said this the last show, it can't be a knee-jerk reaction. They have to take a measured response. You can't just shut down the country because you believe that there might be something heading our way. You take precautions and you do what you can, but you don't do a knee-jerk reaction like the flu season of 17-18. We were told, that's what I read, that the experts were told it's going to be a bad flu season, and over 60,000 people died. We didn't shut down any segment. We didn't give out warnings, hey, old people, stay home. Or if you got heart disease, you get diabetes, stay home. We didn't do that. Some people might say maybe we should. We didn't shut down the country. And if it was all about saving lives, don't you think we would have? Now, I'm all for certain people sheltering at home. If you're elderly, if you're sick, if you have COVID-19, stay the heck in. If you're a healthy person and you take precautions, you should be allowed to go out and live your life. Now, some people, they go to the park, and even Chris Cuomo was saying, they're fools. Well, maybe they are, but so is he. Because he went out with COVID-19, he's bicycling around the Hamptons, and someone even called him on it. That's hypocrisy. Chris Cuomo, the governor's brother. Again, the hypocrisy. I forgot to mention him. He's not a politician, but he's all about himself. He's the story. Chris Cuomo is always the story. The buff Cuomo. Mr. Know-it-all. All right? Or he's a tough guy. He'll take on somebody in a bar, he'll yell at him and whatever. He's the story. When he got COVID-19, he had like this, almost like a diary. Oh, I got up today and I feel better and I did this, and then he had a coming out party, he comes up. Meanwhile, he's been out already, but he said, I've been down there for 40 days and 40 nights, like he was Moses or something like that, wandering around his basement. All right? But he was the story, he was the center of attention, and he broke his own rule, if you want to call it that. He was bicycling when he had COVID-19. So he could have given it to somebody else. Now, I did a post and someone said, well, I'm told to get exercise. Okay, fine. The other day, I'm driving home. I went a different route, and there's a park. I think it's on Mark Tree, or not Mark Tree. It's another street that runs parallel to Mark Tree Road. Right? And they have a nice walking park. I think it's a third of a mile. Not heavily trafficked. right? It's off of a road that's a residential neighborhood. I've walked in there a few times, and they closed it. And they had tape. Now, people can go under the tape, but they closed it. Now, is it more dangerous to go to a lightly trafficked walking park, right, in the woods, it's in the woods, with a mask, distancing yourself, walking around, or go to Walmart, where there are a lot of people walking around Walmart? Most of them have masks. I've seen a few that take the mask off. I've seen people, I said this before, and I'll repeat myself, had the mask under their nose. What is that? I think it's one of two things. If you wear the mask in a place where you really need to wear the mask, I'm not like you're driving or something like that, you need to wear the mask, and you have your nose exposed, you are either dumb or it's a protest. I hate to say this, but if you have the mask on, cover your nose. It's an orifice where the disease can climb in. Right? So if someone sneezes or coughs or just, and I know it's not like that, like airborne, but it stays in the air. Why do you have your nose exposed? I don't understand it. If you're going to put the mask, if you're going to do that, don't even wear the mask. But if you have to wear the mask, wear it the right way. Okay? Let's be smart about that. You're going to be uncomfortable. Is it fun to walk around with a mask covering your mouth? You feel, I can breathe better. Cover your nose. And you're supposed to. That's the rule. When you go to a supermarket, when you come in, wear the mask properly. I've seen people wet their finger under their mask to open the produce bag. I almost caught myself. I'm like, wait a minute, can't do that. I'm smart enough to realize you don't do that. And that's why I bring my own bag and I'm throwing loose pieces of fruit in there. I can't even get the damn bag open. But people are doing that. So if they're licking their finger and then they're touching the avocados or the apples, you don't think another person that touches that apple could get if they then touch their face? Or leave there and take the mask off and touch their face before they put hand sanitizer or get home to wash your hands. That happens. So where is it more dangerous? Go to a supermarket. People with COVID could be touching, I heard people could get it from that, from touching the pump. It's metal, you know, transmits it easily. If I have it and I'm touching it, or cold, even a common cold, think about it, common cold. How do you think a common cold gets around? Someone sneezes, you touch a surface, that's why you wash your hands a lot. I don't know, in my lifetime, if we're going to be shaking hands again. And I say that with all sincerity. I used to be shaking hands all the time. Now with this, I know for a number of years, we ain't going to be doing that. We ain't going to be shaking hands. It's not something we'll be doing. And that's not a terrible thing, because that spreads germs in other ways too. You have a cold, bacteria, virus, whatever. That's probably not the most sanitary thing to do. Who knows if people wash their hands when they go to the bathroom, and you're shaking. That's why Trump says he didn't like to shake hands until he became a politician. But what I would do is I would shake hands, and sometimes if I thought the person was sick or something, then wash my hands. But sometimes you're not near a place to wash your hands, so maybe you better have a hand sanitizer, which are hard to get these days. So I still have mine, but I wash my hands all the time. Not because I'm afraid of COVID so much. And I do it more now because I don't want to get COVID. I don't want to get anything. Right? So the hypocrisy of politicians, do as I say, not as I do. On the left, on the right. Many of them do it, and it's not right. Don't be a hypocrite. Okay? Now, what I wanted to talk a little bit about is virtual court. I'm an attorney, and pre-COVID-19, I was in the courts 5 days a week, sometimes more if I got called up to represent a DWI client, driving while intoxicated, or somebody in an assault or a violation of order of protection, because they have court every single day. You get arrested on a Friday night, they're producing you on a Saturday. You get arrested on a Saturday night, they're producing you Sunday morning. So at least 5 days a week, I would be in court. You're running around to the different courtrooms. Then COVID-19 hit. Then they said, we're going to keep the court closed for a while. It was May 1st, then May 15th. They're not going to open it for a while. So what are we doing? Now the judges are working. For a while they weren't working, or they were working behind the scenes. We weren't involved. But now we have conferences. I have a couple a day. Last week I had 3 in one day, 2 in another, where you have, it's either Skype or Zoom or whatever they use, or a phone. Sometimes I like the phone. I don't need to see the person's face if it's a simple conference. I know who the judge is. I know who my adversary is. We could talk on the phone. Because sometimes you lose the link. The person doesn't know how to get into Skype. We're all learning. It's a learning curve. I'm learning. My staff, I have 1 or 2 people in my office that help me with that stuff, but I'm learning. I can do it now. But you make a mistake, you hit the wrong link, you didn't hit the mic, someone doesn't know, then it messes things up. But with this, you can communicate with the court and talk about the case, just like you could do in person. A little less personal, of course, but you still can communicate in English with the person on the phone. Judge, this guy's not paying my client child support, or he's not getting to see his kid, or this guy's doing this, or this guy's doing that. And you can get emergency conferences. I got a couple coming up where somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do, so the judge needs to hear about it. So you go on, it's the Skype or the phone. I had a hearing, an actual hearing the other day, called trial hearing, order protection. And I ultimately got my client back in his house. But it was a hearing where witnesses testified, evidence was submitted, a little cumbersome, because it's not like in court where I can say, okay, please have this marked as Exhibit 1, show it to the witness, identify it, of course, show it to my adversary and show it to the attorney for the child. Judge doesn't see it yet. And then I introduce it to evidence. And I lay the foundation, and the court rules on it. When you have to do it by Skype or something like that, it makes it more difficult in the court because, well, if I look at it, I can't do that. So I only got some of the documents I wanted in. It was enough, but not, I'd rather try a case in front of the judge. I had to question 2 witnesses. I couldn't even see their face. They're on the phone. One of them I knew, obviously my client, one I didn't know. The judge made a comment, said, I wish I could see how they testify. Because how do you assess credibility? Think about it for a second. When you're a judge or a referee or a support magistrate and there's a hearing, how do you assess credibility? How they testify. Are they looking at their shoes when they get asked a tough question? Are they sweating profusely? Are they moving around in their seat in a nervous way? Are they not making eye contact? All those cues you get, you can't use on a phone. And even when you do Skype, the litigants are not allowed to be in that Skype room. The attorneys are, so I could see the judge, I could see the other attorneys, they can see me. But sometimes we're waiting around, I can hear other cases. Now I'm an attorney, it's no big deal, just like I can sit in a courtroom. But litigants are listening, and maybe the litigant, oh, that's my neighbor, oh, my neighbor's going through family court or something. So they have to be brought in via telephone call. So the attorneys talk, ready to start the hearing? Yes, okay, get the witnesses on the phone. The clerk calls them, and then they're standing around on the phone, and they can hear what's going on. So it's a process. Again, not ideal, but better than not having your case heard. If we didn't have that hearing, which I requested right away, my client would not be allowed to go home. If you lose the hearing, okay, you lose the hearing, and of course he doesn't go home then. But if you win the hearing, or some other arrangements are made, your client has a chance to get back in, or to see a kid that maybe he hasn't been able to see, or she hasn't been able to see, like a writ of habeas corpus. So the courts are up and running in a limited way, and I think the more we learn how to use Skype and become more proficient at it, that will be the wave of the future. Because even after we're allowed to go back, maybe instead of sitting in a courthouse for 4 hours covering 2 cases, you could be at your desk handling conferences. Now, the trials, of course, you can go in, like a custody case. The judge made a comment, we're not going to try custody cases this way. It's too important. Like an order of protection or a writ of habeas corpus, that's important, but it's not necessarily something that's going to have lasting implications. Where you lose custody on a Skype hearing, that wouldn't be fair. So those kinds of cases, people will have to go in. Now, maybe you're not going to have everybody in one room. Maybe it'll be Skype, where you put the witnesses in one room or a witness, and there's things you can do. You're going to have to think outside the box. Just like there's a learning curve, just like presidents and vice presidents and governors and mayors, they make mistakes. You know, Katrina or this earthquake or hurricane or whatever. People get the blame or the credit, but we learn. Okay, if this happens again, this is how I'm going to react. Just like a little kid. You hope the mistakes you make when you're 5, 10, and 15 are not the same mistakes you make when you're 40, 50, and 60. You learn. We are learning many lessons. Unfortunately, sometimes it's the hard way. But with the court system, the powers that be have to come up with a way to keep us safe while meting out justice. Can't just say we're going to open up the courts in September. Conferences, hearings, trials. The big problem that I see is going to be jury trials. Because in a custody case, child support, divorce, you don't get a jury. In a civil case, like a car accident case, you can. In a criminal case, you can. In a criminal case, the defendant, it's their choice. The prosecutor has no say. When I was a prosecutor, sometimes it was frustrating because I'd want a jury trial or I'd want a bench trial. I had no say in the matter. The defendant gets to decide whether or not they have a jury. They're the one in the hot seat. So how are we going to get a jury? How are you going to get 12 people in a felony, let's say, or 6 in a misdemeanor, or in a car accident case, have jurors in a box like that, in close proximity to each other? How are you going to do that? And you can't do it remotely. You cannot do that. Because how do you know the juror's not sitting next to their buddy and the buddy's listening to what's going on or making faces or influencing them, or that they're sitting at home and they're doing the crossword puzzle while a murder case is going on that they're a juror in? And I don't say that lightly. It could happen. Person sitting at home, maybe not paying attention. This way, you know, in a criminal trial, as a defense attorney, as the defendant, the prosecutor, we could see the jury. And they get instructed how to behave during lunch, not to talk about the case, not to take notes. How do you monitor them? The only way you can monitor them is them being in eyesight. So I can look over, and if I see one sleeping, I can say, "Judge," and then we can get rid of that person. Or the person's whispering when they should be listening, or they're taking notes. How do you monitor a juror? Skype or on the phone. You can't, that won't happen. Can't happen. But people have a right to a jury. So what are we going to do? They're going to have to come up with a way to figure that out. Has to. I have cases right now. I have a civil case that my client wants to have a jury trial. There was a death of a party, so that delayed things. We could have tried this in the summertime. But now I can't tell him when I can get him a jury trial. It's beyond my control. It's beyond the judge's control. What do? We got to figure out a way. You can't just roll over and say, "Yeah, you can't get a jury." It's your constitutional right. Now, it could be suspended for a little while, and if someone wants a speedy trial, they may have to go with a bench trial. Maybe as a compromise, instead of 12 jurors, you agree to 6 jurors. Maybe. People say, "Well, no, it's prescribed, 12 in a felony." But if you can waive a jury trial, why can't you agree to 6, let's say, where they can spread out 6 people better than spreading out 12? And then at least you get a jury trial. It may not be the 12 you're entitled to. That might be a way to do it. Right? In a car accident case, maybe you say, "Okay, we're going to pick 3 jurors," or something like that. Almost like a tribunal. In some way to mete out justice. Not perfect. These conferences maybe aren't perfect. Because you're on the phone, it's a little different. You could see the judge, you say, "Judge, look at this. I got a letter," or maybe you're not going to necessarily show the judge the letter, or maybe you say, "Look, my client," in a family court case, "so my client is doing great. Here's a letter that shows that he completed his program." "Oh, let me see." Okay. Can't do that. You can send it ahead of time and hope that it makes its way to the judge. Like when I had my exhibits, what I did, I was proactive. I sent my adversaries, or the adversary, the attorney for the child, in the court ahead of time. They didn't want to sandbag them. Ahead of time. So when we talked about it and I said, that document, are you okay with it? They agreed to 2 of them, not think the other 3. So I couldn't get everything in. And some of those I could have got in had it been an in-court hearing. But I had to make do. That's what you do. You have to make do. You do the best you can for your client. That's why I'm honest. I had a client come in and say, I don't want those conferences. I'm not going to lie to you. I can't guarantee you I can get you in the court building. If it was up to me, I was in court a couple weeks ago. Had my mask on. I had to go in. Kids were taken away from my client or they're kicked out of the house. That's an emergency. I'm essential then, maybe not now, right? Maybe even not a closing or something like that, but you take my client's kids, I'm essential. So I went to court. I had my mask on. I had my hand sanitizer. I washed my hands. I can protect myself. Okay? I could have got hit by a truck on the way there and died. I could get COVID-19, but I protect myself. I do what I have to do to make sure that I'm safe. We all do that. Why do you put a seatbelt on? I mean, when I was a kid, we'd be jumping up and down in the back of the car, or if it was, I forget the name of the old station wagons. You're jumping up in the back, and that's how kids survived. You ever see a car seat from years ago? It's like a metal bar. It's like a torture device. You sit in this thing, and that's how kids rode around. Now they have these things where if it doesn't stop the impact at 70 miles an hour, they recall it. And okay, we want to protect our kids. That's good. But kids survived for years the other way. But there were casualties, of course. And even with good car seats, people can die. So you always want to protect society, but understand there are risks. If you want to protect a kid 100%, say you can't travel in a car. We don't do that. People have to travel. Got about a minute and change left. I just want to quickly talk about a book that I wrote called Divorce, A Practical Guide. Chock full of information from soup to nuts. Even pre-divorce, during the divorce, after the divorce. I talk about the appeal process, orders of protection, same-sex marriage. A lot of information. You can get on Amazon or my website. My website is jusinolaw.com. If you go there, it also has a lot of information. If you want to get information about a criminal case, a personal injury case, a divorce case, a family court case, orders of protection. Very, very important. Information is king. You need information. I have people that come in to see me. They're not attorneys, so I don't expect them to know as much as I do. And some of them are clueless, and they've made decisions that hurt themselves. So I have to pick up the pieces where if they came to me in the beginning or read a book or Googled what is an order of protection, they're going to have more information than if they don't do those things. Knowledge is king. Information is king. Without information, if I get sick, I know my daughter's always going on these websites that tell you if you have a cold, what that can mean, and that's okay. Not a substitute for a doctor, maybe not a substitute for a lawyer if you look it up, but at least you get a little bit of information. And always check the source. Like Facebook, somebody see these posts where it says something ridiculous and it says Babylon Bee. Well, that's satire. Some people don't realize it's satire. And they're posting, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, they look silly. You know, aliens came down and abducted Joe Biden, and they're posting it. It's silly. Thank you for watching the show. Again, Saturdays, 10 a.m., channel 115, or go to YouTube. You have a great day. Thanks for watching.